Welcome to the Business Insider Podcast, where we interview the top business leaders in their respective industries. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today, I am excited to introduce a special VIP guest. We've got Marissa Nance here. She is the founder and CEO of a company called Native Tongue Communications. Marissa, thank you so much for coming on the pod today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Super excited to have you here today. As you know, I've got a bunch of questions lined up for you, and I'm sure audience is wondering, specifically what you guys do and really what the major outcomes are for your clients that work with you. So before the podcast, you had kind of given me a brief rundown on what that looked like. If you wouldn't mind reiterating that to the audience, that'd be amazing, Marissa.
Sure. So, Native Tongue Communications is the first and only minority female media led agency to exist. We specialize in marketing communications, so brand strategy, media investment and buying, audience design, branded entertainment, and native content, which is what I've done for 30 plus years of my career. And we also, though sometimes a little scary for folks lately, we do work in DEA and I, but we have a proprietary tool that does it a little differently than most folks approach it. We handle internal workforce DEA and I, and we translate that to external marketing revenue and results.
That's super cool. So I'm curious, what kind of inspires you to pursue this current path? How'd you get here?
Well, I've always said the title of my memoir is going to be The Only Chip in the Cookie because I spent about 30 years in a holding company system. And while, obviously 30 years there, it must have done something right. I often felt a sense of, I will say, alienation. And I've wanted to be felt seen and heard. I felt a little
Yeah.
invisible. And for someone with a mouth like mine, that's hard if to make me feel invisible. So when the opportunity presented itself for me to spin off, leave, and create a place that I knew was welcoming, was inherently complex culturally, and was a place that clients could feel like they weren't checking a box. Clients could feel like they were innovating toward revenue.
Gotcha.
And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that?
Right,
So
right.
that's what we try to deliver. We try to deliver those kinds of results. I'm very much a Gemini, so half of me thinks creatively with the innovation, and the other half thinks, are you hitting those KPIs? Are you meeting those revenue goals? And that's what
Right.
we bring.
That's amazing. So if you had to define your superpower or the unique skill or insight that really sets you apart in your space, what would it be and how has it shaped your success?
It's empathy. People are not empathetic, and it's interesting. I've been saying that for a long time. And in my brain, in the back of my brain, I always thought, well, I'm going to have to come up with a new superpower because people are going to become and evolve to find and lean into empathy and find more empathy in their lives. And frankly, people are becoming less empathetic and we're more divided
Very
and we
true.
refuse. We're almost like feet down, toes in the ground, that we refuse to see the other side of a coin. We only want to see what's within our own space. And as a marketer, that equals failure. I have won awards for campaigns towards people that look and sound like I do and identify as a woman of color. But I've also won awards for non-Hispanic, cis, white men age 18 to 24. And, secrets out, that's not me. But I am able to be empathetic, and I'm not only able, I'm willing. Everybody's able to be empathetic. Everybody's able to have this superpower. The question is, are you willing to? Are you willing to open yourself up to be something you're not and feel comfortable enough in it that you can then communicate with someone who is in that space and do it in a way that pulls them in and then, frankly, sells your product or service?
Definitely. It's definitely very important to be able to step into someone else's shoes and really relate and understand them. And I do think that's, one of the benefits and something I kind of look forward to in the future. I feel like a lot of the young entrepreneurs, coming into play are a lot more diverse and a lot more understanding of, a diverse set of cultures and being able to really like work in all of those. Rather, you kind of see like the older corporate guys that are like, they just don't really understand it they don't really want to understand it, and it's not really a matter of, like them not embracing culture. It's the entire piece. Like they don't want to embrace AI, they don't want to embrace new technology. It's just like, oh, it's my way or the highway. That's kind of like the way it's been. I feel like we're kind of seeing a transition now.
Empathy is not limited to culture and or people.
Right.
Having an empathetic mindset leads to innovation,
Definitely.
leads to imagination. It leads to new experiences. It can, there's so many more positive things that come from empathy versus building walls and deciding I'm relegated to what I know and what I feel comfortable about, which is here, what I see, what mirrors me. When you can, walk outside, open that door, step out, take that breath of fresh air, you'd be amazed at all the great things that could happen.
Definitely. No, I definitely do. And so through your journey, Marissa, how powerful has networking been to your success? And what would you recommend other entrepreneurs do to up their game?
Well, we'll continue this kind of empathy conversation, right? So when we think about stepping outside of the what you see, what mirrors you, I've had to do that. I was forced to do that. I said I was the only chip in the cookie. There are not a lot of people still. 30, 35 years later, I've been doing this that look and sound like me. So I've had to, and I'm so happy I've had to. And I think as a person, I would have, even if I didn't have to, lean into others to mentor, to network with. And I have to feel comfortable doing that. If I'm not comfortable doing it, then the networking isn't going to work. Right?
Right,
That's not
right,
great networking. If I sense you're uncomfortable, if I sense you don't want to be there, if I sense it feels forced, why would I want to network with you? Why would I want to have continuing
right.
relationships or conversations? So I myself have had to ensure that I understand how to feel comfortable in places where, again, I may be the only one. And to me, that's a key component of great networking. If you can walk into a room, ground yourself in a commonality versus look for differences, you're going to succeed.
Definitely.
So there's your good soundbite. Well, first of many, I'm sure, but ground yourself in that commonality, and then you're able to really be fluid and ebb and flow between conversations and connections and communities. And that's truly what's at the heart and core of good networking.
And just being yourself, right? Like, I feel like if you go there, with the intention of building personal relationships and not being transactional, you're going to get a lot farther. And that's what I've been practicing, as a young entrepreneur. And I feel like it's served me pretty well.
I might look here come the little I might poke a gentle poke back at, but transactional when used in a positive and empathetic way is not a bad word. I like being prepared. And so knowing what I need, and some of what I need is transactional. I'm an entrepreneur, I have my own business, and I need clients to pay me in order for that business to be sustained and keep going. So there has to be, if it's a professional conversation, some transactional element. We think about ROI and the KPIs and North Star of what we need. Having said that, if I go in strictly transactional, and that is what I feel the pressure and pain points are, and then others in empathy feel that from me, that's when we get into that level of feeling uncomfortable that I was talking about. So knowing what I need, that's great, even if it is transactional, but how I present myself and how I engage and come to that place, I think is very key into what you're talking about.
Definitely, definitely. So switching gears here a little bit, let's talk about AI. Obviously, it's impacting every
Do we have to?
industry.
I'm so tired of AI. Do we have to talk
Well, look, we don't have to if you don't want to, but I do feel
talk
like,
about it?
yeah. So, I guess my main question is, how is AI impacting your industry specifically, and are you guys utilizing it?
Well, who's not? Even if you think, oh, I'm not utilizing AI, you're utilizing AI. So let's level set that for everyone. Anyone listening, even if you think you're not utilizing AI, you are. It's some way, shape, or form involved in your world, and you just are not aware of it as of yet. One. Two, certainly in marketing and advertising, twofold in the way our business is run. We have elements and aspects of AI that we utilize to help us keep that going. And two, as an industry, obviously advertising is very keyed into what's going on with AI and the tools and the ways that it can support how we work and how our clients want to work. What I will say though is I I still am passionately pushing back on the idea that AI should universally be accepted. And what I mean by that is AI is what it is birthed. So people would disagree with me, and I'm sometimes not the brightest bulb in the hallway, but I think of AI as a child running around still, as a toddler, maybe elementary school, and how was it birthed and how is it being raised? And that goes back to the people who are programming it, the people who are controlling it, who are, you know, fingers to board, who are on the keyboard, helping create it, launch it, and let it then begin to evolve in and around itself. And I think less than 2% of those people look and sound like me and then I believe it's less than 5% at this point are women and people of color. So even if we were generous and say less than 10%, the AI is being birthed with a fundamental lack of understanding of who I am. And so I'm offended by that. And how can we, it's already been birthed, already out into the world, but how can we birth more that I feel comfortable understands me, wants to understand me, and is willing to be my voice in that world that is AI.
That's definitely a very interesting take. I feel like I've kind of always looked at AI at this current point as not from, a culture understanding me perspective, as more of a data analytical and increasing efficiencies perspective. So I guess what I'm kind of wondering is how do you perceive AI in that sense? Like, do you not look at it from that lens, or are you looking at it more from the cultural lens?
Well, I look at everything just by nature of who I am and my need to survive from a cultural foundation. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that is just the world that I have to survive in. Having said that, when you say data, tell me what you mean. What kinds of data? What are you talking about?
So let's say, I'm doing market research for a client, right? Or, I'm sifting through, different leads in different industries. I'm trying to pinpoint a certain data point that I want to target, whatever that is. I wouldn't look at that. I would just look at it like, in face value, like I need this thing to sift through data so I can get to the answer quicker rather than paying someone to do that where it's going to take them a lot longer to do it. When AI can just do it very efficiently. Or let's say, I want to, I'm fulfilling for a client that is trying to replace their SDRs or they're trying to get rid of their secretary, and our voice agents could easily be implemented into their business and, talk to clients or reach out to leads. Like I guess I'm wondering like what does that have to do with like culture, I guess.
So I'll give you a couple of push points because I love a great dialogue. So in the first one, data in itself can inherently be biased. So let's say the data was I'm an automobile manufacturer, I'm launching a new car, and I feel like I'd like to skew younger. So I want to know data points around a younger audience that might purchase my vehicle. Well, what the AI looks for could inherently, as it is programmed and trained, be biased against, well, but don't look at people of color because the data shows that they disproportionately earn 30% less than everyone else. So my AI, I'm the AI, I'm smart enough to know I don't care about that data. That data is not good for the end result of what I need. It begins to filter in a way that it thinks makes most sense, which, it's hard to describe it that way. And that then begins to show bias against a certain group of people or places or things and it doesn't even know. Maybe it does know, maybe it doesn't. Now we're getting into Schwarzenegger territory, but does it know? Doesn't it know? But that is its bias. So you think it's an innocent, I just wanted to go out and do X and count data. But as it begins to learn and become self-fulfilling, it thinks it's doing the right thing in parsing that data a certain way. And inherently, what we see is higher levels of bias are incorporated in how that's parsed. That's one. Two, yes, but disproportionately, service workers are being displaced by AI, and disproportionately, those service workers over-index as women and people of color who are of underserved communities looking to put food on the table for their families. And so that impacts my community in a negative way. So do you see how these subtle kind of empathy, see, it's back again, that superpower of, okay, I get how it works for me and most people, and the intention is a very strong and powerful word. The intent behind what it's meant to do, and I respect that, but the actuality of what happens, the reality of it can sometimes, if you are empathetic and you begin to see outside of it, have devastating impact and effect. Not the intent, but
Yeah,
the impact and effect that it creates.
I think the way, I think no matter what perspective or, lens you look through, there's always going to be positive and negatives in every single scenario. And that's kind of the way I've always perceived life is like there's always going to be a negative out of every input, there's going to be a negative and positive outcome. So I think it's like obviously you're looking at the negatives of it, but you could also look at the positives, and there are positives. So I really just think it's like if you analyze every situation, it gets so complex of figuring out like, does this benefit me or is this negative for me? So I think it's way more complex than,
And
just a
I
bird's
would
eye view.
what I would say is it's not a negative or a positive because it maybe doesn't track the way you see it. You're calling it negative and positive, but it really is just I'm tracking it the way it impacts me in my world, and you're tracking it the way it impacts you in your world. And that's a disconnect in empathy. By automatically saying it's negative or positive, I'm not looking at it in terms of is it negative or is it positive? I'm looking at it in terms of intent versus impact. So that's an empathy right there. So I would challenge you to say, as you move forward, instead of saying, oh, well, you're just thinking negative and positive, I'm not. I'm thinking impact, intent versus impact. And really, if we take it back, for me, the solution is, and really what I would push forward is have more people of a varied background at the beginning of the AI lifespan so that it can be more empathetic and we can have this greater good and positivity surrounding all of us.
Appreciate that response. Thank you. So Marissa, overall, in context to your business and really what you guys are doing, if you wanted the viewers to take away one thing from this interview, or you can impart with one final thought or idea, what would that be?
It would be we'll just bring it home. And that is if you're willing to step outside the box, if you're willing to say for the greater good, and sometimes for your own good, too many people make very short-sighted decisions based on instantaneous gut reaction. And there is something to taking a breath and listening and thinking through, because that doesn't mean you have to agree. Just like it's not negative or positive, it's intent versus impact. You don't have to agree with what I say, but there is always, and I cannot stress this enough to anyone listening, even if you don't agree, in what I say, there is always something that can be beneficial to you. Whether you don't, what you, we can be diametrically opposed, but in everything you say, there's something that's beneficial to me if I'm willing to just pause, hear it, and pull, and the same holds true for you. So I would say just if we stop for a moment and listen, even if we don't want to be decent human beings, be selfish about it because you will take something away that will benefit you. And then if you're willing to go further, it will benefit all those around you.
And Marissa, for any of our viewers out there that want to connect, collaborate, or even work with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
Well, they can reach me at my email, which is Marissa at nativetonguecommunications.com. And if you go to our website, Native Tongue Communications, my phone number is right there and a phone number for the office. So you can always reach me.
All right, perfect. Well, guys, I'm gonna link all Marissa's stuff in the description. Definitely go check out what she's up to. She's doing an amazing job for her clients. And again, Marissa, thank you so much for coming on today's episode. Had a pleasure having you on and learning more about you and what you guys are up to.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. I love the dialogue.
Absolutely, me as well. Thank you.